If you lay gold in the dust, then the Almighty will be your gold, for then you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. Those are the words of Eliphaz. He was a friend of Job. Job had lost in death all of his 10 children. He had lost, either through death or being stolen, all of his livestock. His wife had turned against God. And now Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar, his 3 friends, had come, and they had sat with him in sackcloth and ashes and in silence for 7 days. And now they are speaking in Job 22, 24 to 26. If you lay gold in the dust, the Almighty will be your gold. And then you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. Now, when Job's trial was over, chapter 42, when his trial was over, this is what God said to Eliphaz. The Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, "My anger burns against you and against your 2 friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." Well, what could be more right, more beautiful, than to say, if you lay gold in the dust, the Almighty will be your gold, and you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. I regard that sentence as true. Right, beautiful. And when Eliphaz spoke it, God was angry at him. So why would it anger God for Eliphaz to say, if God is not your gold, you're an idolater? If you're delighting in gold more than God, what's wrong? What's wrong is that Eliphaz used those words to indict Job. Verse 23, just before those verses, if you, Job, if you return to the Almighty, assuming he's not with him, if you return to the Almighty, you will be built up. If you remove injustice far from you. So Eliphaz and his friends cannot conceive that there could be a man of justice and a man who values God above gold who suffers this much. They can't imagine it. Those 2 things, this much suffering and valuing God above gold and being a man of justice, they can't go together in one person. And they're dead wrong. God is angry that they would talk to Job that way. Now, the reason I'm bringing this to the beginning of the message is because I do want to talk about those words. I want to talk about if you lay gold in the dust, God will be your gold. You will delight yourself in the Almighty. I want to say that to you. And I don't want God to get angry at me. What would be the difference? How could that happen? So I'm alerting you so that you're aware that it is possible for a preacher to speak truth about God in a way that makes God angry. You get that? I want to heighten your vigilance as you listen. I want you to realize that every time you hear someone speak, true things may be mingled with false things. True things may be spoken with half-truths. True things may come from a proud and unloving heart. True things may be spoken in cruel ways. True things may be spoken out of balance, so there's no proportion in what's being said with what's real. It is possible for a preacher to speak truth in a way that makes God angry. So I've alerted myself, and I'm alerting you that it is possible for me to celebrate the preciousness of God, and you're delighting in God in a way that would make Him angry. And I want to put your minds on high alert so that you don't dispense with every filter that you've learned from the Bible and just become a mindless sponge as I talk. You know, when you lift your hands in passionate worship at this event, you're not being asked, not by Louis, not by David Crowder, not by me or anybody else, to turn your brain off while you feel deeply. Rather, you are being summoned to turn your brain on. Think of those lyrics. Is that true? If that's true, I'm going to feel it with all my heart. And if it's not, I'm not playing this game. Whether it's Piper speaking or anybody singing. That's why I'm beginning this way. Drawing your attention to Eliphaz, the fact that he spoke truth. That's a true sentence. And it made God angry. So, even though it made God angry, I want to talk about it. Because it's true. We know it's true because it's all over the Bible. If you lay gold in the dust, the Almighty will be your gold, and you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. So I have two questions to pose and try to answer from the Bible. One, what is it like to delight in God? Two, is that delight your highest duty? Those are my two questions. Let me pose them another way. What is the actual experience of enjoying God? What is it? Finding pleasure in God, being satisfied in God. And the reason I ask the question is because I think many believers know how to enjoy pizza, they know how to enjoy football, they know how to enjoy friends, they know how to enjoy sex. And you put that word enjoy or delight or be satisfied onto God, and that means nothing. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't relate to God that way. I do stuff because He says to do stuff. Delighting, enjoying, being satisfied. I don't know what you're talking about. Is he pizza? Is he football? What is the actual experience of enjoying God, finding pleasure in God, being satisfied in God? And then second question, is that enjoyment, that delight, that satisfaction your highest God-given obligation? Those are my two questions. If you lay gold in the dust, the Almighty will be your gold. And you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. So if God is your gold, He will be your gladness. That's what it says. Matthew 6:21, Jesus said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. That is, if God is your treasure, He will be your pleasure. We're not talking here about the gifts of God. Okay? We're talking about God Himself. This is the great issue in the book of Job. The great issue. Did Job love God more than God's gifts? That's the issue in the book of Job. So Satan does not believe that he does love God more than God's gifts, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to show God He's not real. His joy is in stuff, or his wife, or his kids, or his cattle, not you. So here's what Satan says. Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But you stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. That's the issue in the book of Job. In other words, Job only fears you because you've given him stuff. You've given him good things. You've given him health and a family and prosperity. That's why he loves you. Okay, so all of his kids are dead. All of his cattle are stolen. And here's what he says. Job arose and tore his clothes, shaved his head, fell on the ground and worshiped. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, naked shall I return. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Don't you love that song? I'll bet you've sung that and don't have any idea what you're saying. They're dead. She's dead. You are a blessed God. You're a good God. I love you. You've got to be careful what you sing. I love Matt Redman. Thank God for that song. I remember the first time I sang it. Missionary had just come home, and they were right over there, and their dead baby was in the ground, 2 weeks old. And they were singing with their arms stretched out. They knew what it meant. So that's what the book of Job is about. Job, Satan says, you only fear, love, delight in, cleave to God because he gives you children. So Satan goes back to God. He's not persuaded. No, God. Yeah, kids are dead. Livestock is gone. Here's what he said. Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. All that a man has, he'll give for his life. You stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, he'll curse you to your face. Wrong again. So you see what's going on in this book, right? You got Satan and God and a man who says he loves God, cleaves to God, fears God. And Satan says, no, he doesn't. He only loves stuff. He only loves his gifts. That's what the book is about. Is Job like the psalmist in Psalm 63? Your steadfast love, O Lord, is better than life. So you got to choose between life and all the pleasures of it and steadfast love. And the psalmist says, I'll take God and His love and I will die. Is Job like the prophet Habakkuk? My wife and I chose this text for our wedding text 49 years ago. Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herds in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. No food, none. Starvation just over the horizon. I have my God. So the question is Job like that? Now, Job's responses, as you know, were not perfect. He never cursed God, but he did have to be rebuked for some of the things he said. He passed the test, but he didn't pass it with an A+. There is no doubt what Satan wanted to destroy and what God wanted to exalt. Namely, God is to be treasured. God is to be enjoyed more than His gifts. In prosperity and poverty, in health and disease, in life and death. If you lay gold in the dust, the Almighty will be your gold. Then you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. So here are my two questions. I'll take them one at a time. Question number one, what is it like to delight in God? What is the experience of being satisfied in God like? The first and most fundamental thing that needs to be said is that pleasure in God, delight in God, satisfaction in God is satisfaction in a person, not a thing or an idea or a set of actions, a person. I wonder, not everybody's like this, but I wonder if you've ever pondered, maybe late at night, looking up at the sky, that for all eternity past, there has been something. It's always there. Because nothingness can't give rise to something. That's the meaning. That's the meaning of nothingness. It's no thing. It can't do, it can't create. Nothing is no thing. It's nothing. If there is something, there's always been something. That's amazing. Just that. That there's always been a reality. Then, have you ever considered that therefore there was no time before this reality? There were no set of circumstances. There were no conditions. There were no influences that could make this reality more likely to be one thing than another thing. What it is, and nothing made it what it is. Therefore, the likelihood that it could be one thing and not another thing is just as great as any other thing or person. Therefore, when the Bible reveals in its words and in Jesus Christ, ultimate reality is a person. It's not saying anything inconceivable. It's not saying anything impossible. It's not saying anything improbable. That's an awesome thought. And you've got to decide, whoa, is that What's real? Is that ultimate reality a person? Now, maybe you don't think like that. You just go to sleep. That's okay. Because when you get up in the morning, what you should do is just start reading your Bible. And you don't need to have any of those thoughts at all to find out there's a person out there, and that person is to be enjoyed. Philippians 4, rejoice in the Lord. Psalm 37, delight yourself in the Lord. Psalm 32, be glad in the Lord. Psalm 16, in your presence there is fullness of joy. Psalm 16 again, the Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. Psalm 42, as a deer pants for the flowing stream, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Psalm 143, I stretch out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. Romans 5:11, we rejoice in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now received reconciliation. This is why Jesus died. You and I, everybody in these rooms, are sinners. We can't come to God and enjoy Him. We get incinerated if we come to God. He is holy. Can't even look upon evil without rage. And if that's all you are, that's all you get. And so we had to be saved. We had to be redeemed. We needed someone to bear our guilt, bear our condemnation, which Jesus did. And so He reconciled us to a person. He reconciled us to a person. That's how reconciliation happens. And then 1 Peter 3:18, Christ suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that He might bring us to God. That's why He suffered, to bring us to a person, to bring us to God. Not to get us to heaven minus God, get us out of hell minus God, get us prosperous minus God. He died to bring us to a person. So there's no question that any joy that would be ultimate would be joy in a person. He's to be known. He's to be enjoyed. I said a minute ago, the enjoyment of God is the enjoyment of a person, not the enjoyment of a thing or an idea or a pattern of actions. Okay. So your filters were on. You should say, Because that's the way we get to know the person. Things that He made that taste like Him, point to Him. Ideas revealed in the Bible. Patterns of activity in history and in the world, which when we see them we say, I love Him because He did that. So those things are not God, and they're not the end point of our joy, but you would never be joyful in God without things, without ideas, and without actions on His part. Consider these person-revealing actions.